Welcome back to the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, War Room Edition 3.0. I am here. I'm so happy to be here because you've never been on the show. And as we discussed, I think it has been 3 years since we've seen each other in person. The one
crazy?
and only, crazy. The 2022 Combine, Kyle Hamilton. We were talking about how much we loved him back then. Todd McShay, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Mina. How are you?
I'm good. I'm more than good as we are barreling towards the NFL draft. For folks who are listening to this, who love the draft, if you're listening to this, you don't love the draft, I don't know why you're listening to it. Go check out the Todd McShay Show. It's a Ringer podcast. You also have a newsletter, the McShay Report, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay, so go subscribe to that as well if you want to get a good sense of what your team might do and whether you should feel good about it. Todd, I explained to you the concept.
Yep.
Just to remind folks, we're doing an entire first round. We're going to blaze through it. I'm giving Todd 2 choices for every pick. And then, important, it's what he would do, not what he thinks the NFL teams would do. So this is not a predictive mock draft. It's much more about what we think of the players and the options available to these teams. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do this. It sounds fun.
Okay, so with pick 1-1.
I got all sorts of notes here, too. I feel like I'm in my own little draft room.
Yeah.
My needs, my top 100.
That's kind of the idea behind it. That's why I call it War Room, because it's like we're on the same team picking together. It's like you're the GM, I'm the assistant GM, and I'm like, should we do this or this? And you're making
2 options. Pick one.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a pretty similar option to what I gave Dane Brugler last week for 1-1, because I want to see if you do the same thing as him. The choice is Cam Ward. So we're the Tennessee Titans picking 1, or, and I'll make sure I get this right because I spent some time. Okay. Or the Giants pick, which is 3rd. So you're still in Hunter Ward range.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not dropping that far. You also get a 2025 second, a 2026 first, and I'm throwing in Russell Wilson. So you have a quarterback, which, whatever. I didn't do that last week. So again, the choice is between the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, you're sticking and taking him, or you're taking a bit of a haul, and crucially, you are not moving down out of the range of those 2 amazing players. What are you going to do?
It's enticing, I'll be honest, because you start thinking about, all right, next year's quarterback class, and we're not trying to win this. I mean, everyone's trying to win this year, but we're not realistically trying to make a run this year. I think this late in the process, when you've fallen for a quarterback, you don't move off the spot. I would stick and pick because there's a belief in the organization that this is our guy, and next year's 1 sounds great. But what if the Giants go win 10 games?
Do you think they will?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily, but they could win 8,
I mean, the Texans Cardinals trade is a great example of one where we thought that pick would suck. And
yeah. So I'm going to stick with Ward here.
Okay. So
but I honestly, I would actually think about that. I would probably want a little bit more, to be honest, but I would try to hijack it. But I would stick with Ward here. I think he can be your guy. I think they very clearly are planning on bringing in Ward with all their offseason moves, beefing up their offensive line, not really addressing the quarterback situation. I think it's time.
I gave you Russell Wilson, Todd. No,
honestly, if I'm being like fully transparent, that was the least enticing part of the deal.
I think my feeling now is that both you and Dane think pretty damn high of Ward, and also the separation between him and the other quarterbacks in his class. I'm not giving you a quarterback as an option for the Cleveland Browns. I've been giving people a choice between Shedeur and one of the 2. I'm going to make you choose between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter for the Cleveland Browns, which I suspect it seems like is the choice that they are making in their building right now.
I believe that is the choice that they're making. And I believe that they would be in line with the decision that I would make, and it would be Travis Hunter.
Ooh.
I think Cleveland needs a difference maker. I would put him on offense, and I would try to develop him in a role on defense, which I know is harder. I think if you ask a team that's not in the Travis Hunter sweepstakes, that they would rather play him at corner, keep him in the cornerback room, have communication right on the defensive side, and then moonlight him as a wide receiver, put in installs every week, get him, 20 plus snaps a week and try to get him 4 or 5 touches. I would play him. I would start at wide receiver. I think we know our defense is great here in Cleveland. We know it's going to be a top shelf defense, we need someone who can take a 3-yard slant and turn it to 25 yards. We need a chunk player. We need someone to light a fire in this offense. And I think that's the kind of the jumping off point. I love Abdul Carter. I really do. I have identical grades on the two players. I think if you hit on Hunter, utilize him properly, and figure out a way, which I think he can do. He's going to be the first player ever to legitimately play. I mean, everyone talks about, well, you have Champ Bailey and Charles Woodson and even Deion Sanders. Like, go and look. Their combined catches, Champ and Woodson, was like under 7 catches in their career. These were defensive players. And the return game, yes, for Deion, but the return game has changed in the NFL. I think Travis Hunter's got a chance to be something that the league has literally never seen before. And I would love for him to do it in my city, in my organization.
Okay. I love Travis Hunter. I do not love the idea of him catching passes from Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. So I really hope that they figure something out at the quarterback position.
But what if it's Shedeur too in a year from now, in 2026?
Yeah, or Kirk Cousins, maybe they'll trade for Kirk Cousins. I'm stalling a little bit
I don't know about Kirk anymore with Flacco.
To Cleveland.
I think the plan was always a veteran who can help us win games now if we need him. A reclamation project, and we got one in Kenny Pickett, and a rookie quarterback that we can develop on the back end. And
You're
for a
guy,
lot of reasons. What?
You're a check guy. Okay, so I
absolutely love Tyler Show.
I might introduce that into the equation at the end.
Okay.
Just sit tight on that. We love a good trade back into the first round for, okay. So I'm doing another trade here just because I want to throw it at you and see how you feel about the player. I know it's a little trade crazy to start, but they're only players that are worth trading up for, frankly, are the top to me.
Yeah.
So pick 3. Again, Shedeur Sanders is dropping in this. He is not an option. I've been given him his option for the Giants. I'm taking him off the board. Stick and take Abdul Carter, or the Carolina Panthers climb up because they're so desperate for edge. So you're dropping only 5 spots to 1.8, and you're also picking up 2 second-round picks in the process. You're the New York Giants. You're pretty stacked already at edge, and you desperately need other things. Would you take this trade, or would you stick and take Abdul Carter?
What's the trade again? What am I getting?
1.8 and then 2 second rounders, 1 this year and 1 next year. I think working off of maybe the Devontae Smith trade. I worked off of
that seems reasonable. Yeah. Again, enticing. There are only 2 players in this draft. Well, 2 players in the quarterback. There's a top tier, and it's only 2 players for me, and it's Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and then the quarterback and Cam Ward. I'm not moving off that spot. I'm going to stick with Abdul Carter. Maybe it's to just keep things simple, but the reality is, I just envision, like, think about 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, and I've got Thibodeau, Burns, and Carter just prowling around in some NASCAR package. I'm off the field, right? Like, and look at all these organizations when they get their quarterback loading up on pass rushers, closers. To me, if it's not quarterback, then the second premium position in the NFL is pass rusher. I'm not going to pass on the best guy in this class. I'm going to take Abdul Carter there 3, and then I'm probably going to try to move up to go get a quarterback later in the first, but we can get to that later.
All right, so New England Patriots are up. I have offered trades for this one multiple times for Sanders. I'm not going to do it this time because I just kind of want to get your thoughts on these 2 players and see how you feel them stacked up versus each other. Both offensive tackles. I'm going to throw out Will Campbell and Armand Membou out of Missouri. So the Patriots at this point have to choose between 2 offensive tackles at pick 4.
You could have gotten me here if it was a different player at a different position. Okay. Because I don't view Will Campbell or Armand Membou in the top elite tiers, the top 2 tiers as I break them down.
This is the rub for the Pats, right? The need doesn't align with where they're picking.
It doesn't. And I'm more of I'm a value guy. Get the best football players when it's reasonable. I would have even considered like an Ashton Jeanty here, Jalen Walker, truly. But those are my options, and I trust my assistant GM here. She brought me my 2 my two options. I'm going to take Will Campbell, and I'm going to do it with this as the backdrop. I've got a new head coach in Mike Vrabel. I need someone who's going to be the leader and walk in and become that alpha dog in the offensive line room. I think Will Campbell is flawed. And it's not just the arm length. I see like push pull. I see getting beat to the inside sometimes. I think he has work to do to become a very good starting tackle in the league. But I think he can be a very solid left tackle in the league as a rookie and continue to kind of incrementally grow. I'm also trying, and I don't want to oversell the culture thing, but I like when I walk into that room, who's the dog in there? And my best asset is a quarterback in Drake May, who's an unbelievably bright future. And if I can't keep him available, then what am I doing? That's the only way that things can get derailed for the Patriots is if he starts to A, get injured, or B, starts to lose his confidence and can't trust what's in front of him. So with all those things said, I'm going to take a little bit lesser skilled player. Membou, I think, has a greater upside, but Membou's a right tackle. And yes, he's only like 20 years old and he'll keep getting better. And I think he might be more physically dominant when it's all said and done, but he's a right tackle. And I'm going to solidify that left tackle spot with a right-handed quarterback.
Okay. The Jags have been unbelievably chalk in this show, and I feel like every show on planet Earth. You know the player I'm going to mention, Mason Graham out of Michigan. I'm going to throw a curveball. I have not introduced this player for the Jags yet. I'm going to put Jalon Walker here. This defense.
I'm taking Jalon Walker. I'm taking Jalon. Yep.
Wow.
I'm taking Jalon Walker.
Oh, tell me why.
Because because I've got physical guys up front. My run defense was really bad last year, but you know what was worse? My pass defense. Last in the league. Those two guys, who was it? They're two edges, Travon Walker and what is it? Alan Hines. I always mix up.
Oh, Josh Hines Allen. Yes.
Hines Allen. Yeah. Thank you. I think they had like 18 and a half of the team's whatever number of sacks, which was a low number. The next highest was number 3 we had 3 sacks. Okay. So I need another pass rusher on that defensive front. I can kick Travon Walker inside in certain situations. I've got guys that can kind of two-gap, and we can improve in that area. And I've got to be better versus the pass. So I'm going to take Jalon Walker and utilize his versatility. He's such an explosive, dynamic athlete. For some reason, I just feel like that's the play if you want to take a significant step next year.
Okay. Oh, man. Well, you leaving Mason Graham on the board kind of threw a curve into the. First of all, I love it finally, because I actually think he could be a trade up now, but not a dramatic trade up. So I am going to give you an option. Let's see, going from 8 to 6. That's such a small trade up. Let me look at my little guide here. I'll just do Okay. This might be a little, I'm going to throw in one more. Okay. So you're the Raiders, another team that have been very commonly associated with one player. I'm going to put that player on the board, Ashton Jeanty. Or the Carolina Panthers want Mason Graham so bad. All you have to do is fall to 1.8 and you're going to get a 3rd round pick. Sorry, I'm going to throw that up. Which is similar to, actually, this is more like the Devontae Smith trade where they jumped 2 spots and gave up a 3rd.
I'm trading back. Give me the additional pick. We've got work to do here. It's 90%. I recognize it's not 100%, but the Jets sure are not taking Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
Right. They have other needs and it just doesn't align. The only risk that I'm creating for myself is that the Jets then trade out of that spot for a team that wants to move up ahead of me to get Jeanty. And I'd have to live with those consequences. But I'm willing to risk that. There's other, top tier players that I can still wind up getting. I'm moving back 2 spots and I'm allowing Carolina to come up and take, so who's Carolina coming up for?
Mason Graham.
Oh, Mason Graham. Okay. Done.
Real need for them.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. That's why I gave them that in my mock draft when he was still available at 8. So yeah.
So if you're a Panthers fan, you feel pretty good about this, right? You need blue chip talent desperately in your front 7. So, it's not that rich. Okay. So I'm going to put this on the board for you because the Jets, I have not talked about this player for the Jets at all. I'm going to put Shedeur Sanders up versus Membou, who is, I think, a very common chalky pick for the Jets, need, aligns, etc. But would you be tempted to take Shedeur Sanders instead if he's available?
Interestingly enough, I'd be more tempted to take Jaxson Dart, and I'd be more tempted to take and Tyler Warren.
Yeah, he's gone to the Jets a few times. So
But
you're going to take Membou.
I'm going to take Membou because I mean, I have been doing mock drafts for longer than I care to think about. And it spans back 3 general managers, right? We're on our 3rd general manager where every year I go sit down and do these draft needs and I evaluate their roster. And it's like the Jets are still trying to patch together an offensive line. And Joe Douglas made huge strides. And Olu, obviously, coming off a promising year. I think you've got your left tackle. With Elijah Vera Tucker, you've got your left guard. You've got Tippmann that they drafted. You've got Simpson they brought in. You're a right tackle away from maybe for the first time in 3 general managers solidifying this offensive line. Finally, I'm not going to pass it. And he's a right tackle. That's the spot that they could utilize. I can't pass up on that opportunity.
All right. So the Raiders are thrilled because, as you predicted, Ashton Jeanty is still here, but so is Teteroa Mcmillan. And this is, I think, a very fascinating choice for them. Are you going to take Jeanty or T-Mac with the Panthers pick?
I'm racing in that card for Ashton Jeanty.
Racing.
I'm not a Tet guy.
Okay.
Compared to others, I see the talent. I'm not ignorant. He's a first-round talent. There's no question. I'm not in this range of the draft. Am I considering Tet McMillan? And Jeanty special. I don't know that I've talked to anyone in the league, Mina, that doesn't have him in like at least the top 5 players in this class, but a lot have him at 3. And I know this is about me, and I see it the same way. I think there are four guys at the top. If you want to add Warren, then it's 5. But Jeanty's very much in that mix, whether it's 3 or 4. I would just love to see him too with the Raiders. I just think it would be a good fit.
I'm going to make you do the choice that you sort of teased, talking about the Saints. Let's go. Jaxson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, pick 9.
Jaxson Dart.
Okay.
And it's not, I know people are, you hate Shedeur Sanders. I don't hate Shedeur Sanders. I want to see Shedeur Sanders succeed. And I want to see Jaxson Dart succeed. And I want to see Cam Ward succeed. I want to see all of these guys succeed. How are they going to succeed? And we talk about it all the time, 2-3 years later, like, well, they wound up in the wrong spot. How's Baker Mayfield having success in Tampa? And how's Sam Darnold having success in Minnesota when it looked so bad in their previous stops, in the first places they were drafted? It's because I feel like so often it's so easy to talk about traits and the big arm or the accuracy or all these different things. But like with the quarterback, and it's part of the reason why we have like a 40% hit rate on these guys over the last decade or so. I look at Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator in 3 spots. Who are his quarterbacks? Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. If you talk to a lot of NFL people and poll them, what's the comp on Jaxson Dart? I'd say the majority would say Jalen Hurts. It's sturdy, mobile, stronger arm, not elite, but stronger arm quarterbacks is what Kellen Moore. And I'm the general manager, right? I'm Mickey Loomis. I just hired a former quarterback, a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator who is focused on quarterbacks. And they were all really good players, but he brought out the best in them. And so why would I draft a quarterback that doesn't fit what he's looking for as much as Jaxson Dart? So I'm taking Jaxson Dart here.
The Kellen Moore connection is really interesting because I've talked about, we did a pod on the quarterbacks, and one of the things I liked the most about Jaxson Dart was I was shocked by what a good runner he was. Not just an athlete, but like a legitimately good runner with good vision and good instincts. Yes. And you go back to the work that Moore did in Philadelphia, and you really can see a designed quarterback run game being.
When you close your eyes and you think of like some of the bigger plays and the successful things where you're like, oh, I like that. For all 3 of those guys, he had Dak, Justin, and Hurts. It's pressure coming, climbing the pocket, remaining poised, rolling out a little bit, like, but horizontally, not bailing, not drifting, not trying to run around. It's climbing, it's
Yeah.
sliding, throwing. That's I know you've watched the tape, but Jaxson darts versus pressure, when if like the 161 clips that I watched,
He's tough.
so many of those were pressure on the outside, climbing it, sliding, locating, and throwing. And if it's not there, taking off and running. Yeah,
The other thing I love about this destination, time. He doesn't have to play immediately.
correct.
Okay, pick 10. So the Chicago Bears, we're looking at both offensive tackles. They're both off the board. So, and also they want Ashton Jeanty. He's gone. Very interesting team in the draft to me because they could go in
Very.
multiple directions.
I think they'd like to trade out, right?
They would, but we're taking a break on trades for now.
Yeah, it's good.
Mostly because it's hard for me to keep track of them all. Okay, you got Tyler Warren
Mhm.
or Mike Green, who is my edge 3 in this draft, and edges 1 and 2 are gone.
And I like Mike Green a lot. He's my edge 3 as well. But I'm still going with Tyler Warren. And I know they've got Cole Kmet, and I understand it. But you pick it 39 and 41 in the second. I'm not saying the edge is going to be there, but a running back's going to be there. Maybe you get lucky and one of those offensive tackles starts to slide, like a Josh Simmons or a Connerly. I'm not convinced it will happen. But let's take the best football player. I've got Tyler Warren as my 5th best player. I've got a quarterback in Caleb Williams who we're tracking towards giving him the tools and the surroundings, with obviously with Ben Johnson coming in, the offensive line and 3 additions they made. Let's continue to aid him in his development. And I just think of like, I always mispronounce it. Is it Kolnicki, the offensive coordinator at Penn State? I thought he did a brilliant job. Like the offense ran through a tight end, and that's not easy to do anywhere, especially in college. It ran through a tight end, and the verse, like kind of the different unique looks and blends and how they utilize him. And then I start to think like,
Ben Johnson.
imagine Ben Johnson cooking things up in that lab. You know,
one of my favorite potential coordinator skill player pairings is that those
right?
two.
That would be a blast. So
Yeah. Okay, I love this choice for you because you kind of teased some of your proclivities. The San Francisco 49ers with pick 11, 2 corners, Barron and Will Johnson. Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson. Will Johnson, Michigan, Barron, Texas. Who are you taking?
that's tough.
It's tough because of the team too, I think, but yeah.
I like Barron more than I like Campbell. Okay.
Or Johnson.
But
Johnson.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Johnson. I had the wrong Will. I like Barron more than I like Will Johnson. Okay. I think Will Johnson, the thing that concerns me is that deep speed, and more importantly, like when his back is turned and the ball is in the air, there's some ugly tape. Like down the left rail, the Maryland game, a couple of Ohio State, the national championship, Washington, like Fresno this year. There's some bad tape. But when he had that pick 6 in the game, and then but the rest of the game was kind of a nightmare for him. But when he's off in coverage and he's playing with his eyes, and the fact that he can play like that multiple, my comp for him was it's not a perfect one, but Charvarius Ward. That's who they just lost. It's all a roundabout way to say I'm going against my board here because I think the fit is better in terms of a bigger kind of. I don't know, he's not really longer in terms of, but yeah, he is longer because
more of the prototype than
more
Barron.
to the prototype outside guy. Barron is just a better football player. So I'm going to go with Johnson here.
They also have a really good slot in San Francisco and Lenoir. They just paid him. Not that Barron is necessarily slot only, but yeah, it's a little bit cleaner of a fit. So
correct.
I'm in alignment with you. All right. If I'm the Cowboys, I am thrilled because we got no receiver has been taken in the draft thus far in the R War Room. So I'm going to put 2 on the board for you. T-Mac is back, and I'm going to throw in Matthew Golden out of Texas. Who are you going to take?
I don't like you, Mina.
It's a great choice, though. Aren't you happy if you're the Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm happy if I'm the Cowboys. There's no question about it. What the Cowboys will very likely do in that scenario, if it's down to those 2 picks, is take Tedero and Mcmillan.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's a compliment. You've got your difference maker on the other side. You look for a big one-on-one guy in Tet, jump balls. Don't need him to be a great route runner year one. Continue to develop him. Ah,
You got to choose.
I'm going to take Mcmillan.
Okay.
I'm going to do it just because of this situation. But I want to make it perfectly clear to everyone out there that's listening and watching. I would take Matthew Golden given most other circumstances. This is a Dallas thing specifically with their offense, their weapons, Dak style.
I love the choice I'm going to make you make for the Miami Dolphins because it is a choice between best player available versus desperate need. Best player available is also need. I'm putting Barron back. I'm going to throw in Banks Jr. We all know this team's desperate when it comes to the offensive line. I think this raises questions about where you have him playing per se, but there's some. The Dolphins need both. Let's be real. What would you do here?
I'm taking Barron. I can't stomach it. The difference in terms of
they
ranking.
do need a corner too, so it's not like crazy.
They do need a corner. You make yourself vulnerable when you start reaching for need, and that's what I would be doing. I absolutely see it. I honestly think Banks, he had 42 starts at Texas, one of the biggest programs in college football, coached very well, big games. That Georgia game's hard to unsee, and then he doesn't play in the next Georgia game. The technique, the push-pull stuff with him is frustrating, top heavy. I can see him at guard early in his career kicking back out. I think he's going to be a good player, but I just know that Barron's going to come in and make a difference. He's going to take the ball away. He gives me versatility on the defensive side. I'm going to go with Barron.
Banks Jr. will be back soon, but not right now. We're doing the Indianapolis Colts, and this is a fun choice. Mike Green is back on the board, and for the first time, Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, makes an appearance. Both needs for the Colts. Who are you taking?
I'm going to disappoint Chargers fans and take Loveland here.
And some Seahawks fans too.
Yes. Good point. I think he's different, Mina. I think he's kind of being I think he's being undervalued in this whole thing. Can't block very well, I get it, but he'll give some effort. We'll improve that. And at the end of the day, I need a difference maker. I don't know who's throwing the ball to him yet. We got a camp to figure that out. But I know I need difference makers. I know the thing he does best is what those quarterbacks need most, and that's separate. There's no tight end in this class that separates like him, including Tyler Warren. And I'm not saying he's not Brock Bowers, and I'm not trying to stretch there, but he's just a tick below in terms of the ability to separate with his feet and routes.
Falcons.
Okay.
Not a lot of mystery here. Two edges. Mike Green remains on the board, and for the first time, a wild Shemar Stewart appears. Polarizing player. I actually have not seen your thoughts on him. Obviously, he's more of the gamble. Well, I guess not obviously. I think Mike Green averaged Shemar Stewart's career sack prediction in like 3 games this season. So It is very, very different players, obviously playing at different levels, though. Who are you going to take?
Few quick things on this. First of all, they didn't bring offensive coaches to the combine, and they had like 45 interviews, all with defensive players, right? I do find it interesting, though. They're doing some real late work. They just restructured Matthews, the tackle, his deal, and it looks like he's here for 4 more years. But it was for salary cap purposes. They got to be able to pay their rookie class. I think it's intriguing that they're doing a lot of work on like Banks and some other offensive tackles. So it's something to just kind of keep in mind that they could surprise. We've seen them zag when we all thought they were going to zig. So that's one nugget. 2 is, and we'll get to Shemar Stewart later, I believe in him. Okay. 3 is they only have 5 draft picks in this entire draft. This would be Terry Fontenot. This would be a great opportunity to move back. And that's why I think they're doing a little work on those offensive tackles that maybe come off the board a little bit later in the first or early in the second. So with all those said, I'm going with Mike Green. I think he's more explosive, pass rusher. I think he's got that quickness and power combo. And they have been desperate for a guy like this. Like other places can develop Stewart as a pass rusher, and he's going to be great versus the run right away. He's got a really good motor. His traits are phenomenal. But I need to know that this guy can get home as a pass rusher if I'm the Falcons, and that's what Green does.
All right. I'm debating whether to leave him on the board for the Cardinals. I think I'm not going to go edge here. I'm going to give you Cardinals could really draft literally any position on defense, which makes this, except for safety, which makes this interesting. I don't know if Cardinals fans will love either of these picks. They're both players I really, really like, though. Value is kind of where it gets tricky. One of them is my favorite player in the draft. You and I talked about this right before. And I suspect the Cardinals coach, with his background, is probably in love with him, and that's Jihaad Campbell. So he's the linebacker out of Alabama. We're putting him on the board. We're also putting out for the first time Kenneth Grant. Cardinals said we sucked against the run last year. We signed Josh Sweat. We're better at pass rush, but we really need that run-stuffing defensive tackle. Which of these two players are you taking?
That's pretty easy for me. I'm going Campbell. If you had thrown up Walter Nolan, for me personally, that would be a different discussion. I really like Campbell too. I struggle with off the ball linebackers. Where do you value them? But they need a tone setting, sideline to sideline difference maker versus the run. And I like him in coverage. And I know that he's a little upright and all that, but like zone coverage, his eyes, you see some different stuff with him, his length, pass rushing ability at times. Like I just think the versatility that he brings, they need someone who's going to be kind of like that face of the defense and guy you can trust every week. And I think Campbell could be that.
All right. Let's take a quick break, come back, and do the second half of the draft. All right. We are back. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, who have some interesting needs, I am going to give you an offensive choice and a defensive choice.
Okay.
Those choices are, I don't think I did this one last week for them. Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Okay. They need a guards. And then I'm going to put Shemar Stewart back on the board here. Obviously, pass rush. Who knows what's going on with Trey Hendrickson, but outside Trey Hendrickson, they got nothing. So which of these two players would you take?
Couldn't you just see him taking Michael Williams, though? Only, I want you to do, just for fun, because I know you're a little bit crazy me.
I have so many.
I'm not. I'm just saying, if you go back and look at their last 7, 8, 9 drafts, last decade, they draft big time programs that are at their pinnacle. No. Almost every Georgia, Alabama, LSU. It's pretty wild. Mostly SEC, but Clemson, it's pretty wild. Anyway, that's
poorly though. Poorly lately. I think about Williams, since he's going to come up soon. I do love him if they keep Trey Hendrickson, because I think he gives you that foundation edge set. He's good against the run, and then he can develop as a pass rusher.
Right. No, I'm taking Shemar. I'm taking yeah. I think he's everyone does the Trayvon Walker thing because the combine measurables were similar. I think while yes, Trayvon is ground up, maybe a little bit more explosive. I think this guy's bendier. I see more flexibility in him. I see more upside as a pass rusher. Here's the thing with Shemar. If you want to just boil it down, he has everything you need, except I worry about his instincts and awareness. The great pass rushers have instincts. As they're working through and kind of shaving that edge and working through contact and dipping and ripping, all that stuff, they have an innate ability to know where the quarterback is. That's what I see. And I can't tell you, because when I'm going to go on a rant. I'm sorry. But the first game I watched was against Missouri, and it's play 52. And they play 48, then 52, then 56, and they're up 27-3, and then 31-3, 34-3, whatever the score was. They're blowing them out. And this guy's playing his ass off, Mina, flying around the field, chasing down guys on plays that most defensive ends are I'm good, someone else will get him. So it's all there, except the awareness. And can you coach that? That's the fascinating part. So anyway, but I would take Stewart here.
I want to talk to some lineman coaches about him, some line coaches about him, because I'm so fascinated by his lack of finishing, and I've watched it so many times trying to figure out like what is missing here. Um,
That's what I found. Because
Fascinating.
the
No, that's
traits are
great.
all there.
It's a great it is like a lack of awareness. Like I'm gonna get into it next week. We're doing defensive players. Okay, I'm stoked if I'm the Seahawks because I think I have two amazing choices. Matthew Golden was still on the board, dude. So Matthew Golden is one of the choices, and Greg Zabel. They need both guard and center, arguably. I think he's a better fit for them, frankly, than Tyler Booker personally. So I'm giving you him as a choice. Who would you take between these two players?
I take Golden.
Yeah.
Between those two players. I can get it. I can kick a tackle into guard in the second round. They've got additional picks. I don't have it in front of me, but they got a handful.
Banks Jr. Now that I think about it. Well, anyways, whatever. It's too late. I want Golden anyways, so.
Yeah.
Golden
I think we need a weapon. He's 4.29. He's not the only thing with Golden that is he's not as great after the catch as you would expect him to be, but my goodness, I love his routes. I love the way he leverages them, his stem, in and out of breaks. Catch, make the first defender miss, speed down and you know what he did? And it's interesting, like 38 catches. He had 38 catches his first year when Tank Dell was at Houston. He had 38 catches and was the third receiver at Houston. And I would like to dig into that a little bit more, in terms of the why. But he comes to Texas and he's the number 2, and Isaiah Bond is supposed to be the featured guy. And Isaiah Bond is dealing with, the injury and frustration, and now he can't catch the ball in certain situations and they needed a guy to step up, and he did. The big moments, the big games, he stepped up. It's like it all came together this past year for Golden, and I'm betting on we're going to continue to ascend.
The Tampa Bay Bucks are not thrilled because their top edges and linebackers and corners are all off the board at this point. But they're going to pivot. There's still a couple of intriguing pass rushers, and I'm going to let you choose between them. One of whom we've talked about and one of whom we have not. This is the first time we're going to see Donovan Ezeraku. We're putting him from Boston College opposite Michael Williams out of Georgia.
I'm going to go... I do think it would be interesting, Maxwell Hairston. I think this is the range we start. I think he's going to be surprised.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, yeah. But these are my two choices, and I'm not saying I would even take Hairston over these guys.
Yeah, no,
but that would be in the conversation.
Just watched him.
I'm going to go with Michael here.
Okay.
I'm betting on his traits. He called it 60%. I think there were games where he was able to punch through the ankle a little bit last year. The sack production, I think it was like 14 sacks in 40 career games. But the best of him, when he wasn't even fully healthy, but the best of him, like the Texas game, a couple other times, like he's 20 years old, Mina. I think he turns 21 in July. And to see him toss guys around at this age, still developing, I'm betting on his traits. And just talking to people around that Georgia program, he's not the alpha dog that Jalen Walker is, but he loves ball. He's quieter, but he's going to work, and he's going to. I'm going to bet on his traits.
The Packers are sick because he is like their prototype, and I'm looking at my board, and I had him as okay. Well, anyway.
I just saw he had a top. I hate when people say top 30. I can't believe it almost came out of my mouth. He had a 30 visit with Green Bay recently, and I was like, that makes sense.
The style, yeah, I know. Okay, so the Broncos, I am not offering you Omarion Hampton because I want to give you a different choice. Although I do think that is a very likely.
Okay.
I'm going to make you choose between two receivers because I just want to hear your thoughts on them.
Okay.
I don't think either of them we've talked about. Emeka Buka out of Ohio State, Luther Burden, the third out of Missouri. Which one would you take if you're the Denver Broncos?
That's interesting. Because I am not the biggest fan of Burden. And the more tape I studied of Buka, I was trying to figure out like, all right, what makes him different? Because the speed doesn't make him different. He's not like as twitchy as some of these guys. He's not as big as some guys. I think I went on this whole rant. It's almost like the significant other, like you're friends with this group of friends. And if it's for you, it's a guy that you've been friends with for a while, and you get to know, like, every time you're around him, he makes you laugh and you have fun and you share the same interests. And when you need something, like, they're there for you, even if it's just a phone call. They shoot a text when you have a bad day. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, why? Maybe I'm in love with this guy, this guy, right? And so for me, that was the experience with Ibuka. Like, he's just always there. He's reliable. I like him. I know, like, the stories coming out of Ohio State and the work ethic. Like, I remember going to the pro day for Terry McLaurin, and it wasn't the Terry McLaurin show. They had wide receivers who were explosive. They had a quarterback. They had Bosa. And we were here to see everybody else besides McLaurin. But every person I talked to that I've gotten to know at Ohio State wanted to talk to me about Terry. And it's kind of the same with Ibuka. You just know what you're getting, and I don't see a way that he fails. He may not be elite, but I don't see. I'm going to take Ibuka, but I do think for Sean Payton, that run after catch, that versatility, the comp you get all the time when you talk to people in the league is Debo Samuel. I do think he would be fascinated by that, but I'm going to go with the safer, consistent route with a young quarterback.
Buka also used in such diverse ways, though. In college,
yes.
You got to think Peyton.
Yes.
I love that fit. I love him with the Denver Broncos. It's one of my favorite landing spots for him. Okay, so we are now at pick 21. The Steelers are picking, unsurprisingly, Shedeur Sanders, who has fallen in our mock, is back on the board. I threw in Kelvin Banks Jr. here because I think tackles, maybe it's not sneaky need, but they're not feeling great about what they've seen the first couple of years from Broderick Jones, perhaps. They want to improve the run game. This could also be a Hampton spot, but, I'm going to go with the offensive lineman, which would mean that they pass at a quarterback this year or at the
top. And they don't have a second-round pick. And I keep waiting to hear from your good friend Aaron Rodgers.
We would assume in this scenario that Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler, I guess.
Yeah, and honestly, it wouldn't matter either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Shedeur here. I'm taking Shedeur here. I'm taking Shedeur here, and I feel good about that because I think they're going to be great on defense. If I need him this year, I think he's as ready as any of these quarterbacks. Yeah, I'm going to develop him, and I think he would fit with Mike Tomlin in that organization. I would take Shedeur there.
Okay.
And I never expected him to be there at 21. Like, it kind of works out.
Yeah, I agree. That's my favorite spot for him. Okay. So I've given the Chargers the same picks too many times in a row, so I need to mix it up here. We're going to go in a couple different directions. This is Jim Harbaugh. So we're going trenches both sides. Walter Nolan for the first time, defensive tackle, is on the board, and Tyler Booker has not been taken. So I'm going to throw him back up, and he is a pretty good fit for this offense.
I like Booker there. I'm going to be honest. I like Booker there. The frustration they had with
your offensive line was a nightmare last year. I know they've signed that.
And what hurt them in the playoffs, Harbaugh was complaining about it. Like, we need space to throw and long levered quarterback. I'm taking Walter Nolan.
Ooh.
I know. I see some stuff in Walter. I think he's the second best defensive tackle in this class. And quite honestly, if I felt a little bit better about the reports of what I'm getting. Here's the thing. Between the lines, this dude is all in. He flies around. His effort's awesome. It's outside the lines. And it's not, I don't want to paint an ugly picture, but it's not what you're thrilled about with the top 10 pick in terms of like what the consistency and the maturity and all that stuff. But I think at this spot for that team, Walter Nolan, he's got a chance to be a special difference maker in the league and along the interior.
Okay. You mentioned this player, so I'm going to bring him here for the first time. Actually, two players for the Packers now. I haven't mentioned either of them. Maxwell Hairston, talked about him, cornerback out of Kentucky. And I'm going to throw in Derek Harmon, who's a defensive tackle out of Oregon.
I like those options. And I'd be fine with either. I'm going to take Hairston here. I'm a little higher on Hairston than maybe
This would
other
be
people
early,
are.
yeah.
Like, what's not to like is, I get it, like the shoulder injury, his tackling needs to improve. I understand that. But this is a league built on the passing game. You got to be able to rush the quarterback, and you got to be able to cover the other guys. He can play man, he can play zone. Fastest guy at the combine this year. And honestly, like, that's not even, I think he might be the second most explosive, dynamic athlete in this draft, Mina, besides behind Hunter. Like, I see a different athleticism and explosiveness, and like how fluid his hips are. And he takes the ball away. 3 pick sixes. Like, I don't know. And Jair, I just think that this is the right spot. I would take Hairston here.
I think he's a good scheme fit with Jeff Hafley too.
Yes.
I like him playing off. So
Half.
all right. The Minnesota Vikings, pick 24. These are 2 fun choices. We're going to give a gift to Brian Flores. The gift is either Malachi Starks, or I'm going to put Kenneth Grant back on the board. I think these are both positions that they could address.
I'm going to go with Malachi Starks.
I love Malachi Starks here. I think it'd be a great fit. He's so much fun.
I agree. Yeah, and Harrison Smith can't play forever. And I think Starks, like, it was really hard to watch Starks with that combine workout compared to Eamon Worry and his combine workout. But then you go back to the tape and you watch and how fluid he is and smooth he is and instinctive he is and taking the football away. I just know what he is as a football player. And Kenneth Grant, I like him. I see the flashes. I see the size and all that. I'm not quite as high on him as some other people.
I keep giving the same. I keep doing offensive linemen for the Texans for obvious reasons, but I want to be a little bit different here and mix it up a tad. So I'm going to throw Banks Jr. back on the board, but I'm going to reintroduce Burden. There's no one like him on this offense right now, and it is quietly a need for Houston.
Yeah,
like the lineman or the receiver.
Yeah, you brought in Christian Kirk, but no Booker, huh? I'm taking Banks.
Oh, wait, I forgot that Booker fell. No, I mean, no, take Banks.
That's fine. I'll take Banks if those are my only 2 options. I do like that Alabama connection, the Will Anderson, the report. Like, I was standing with Nick and looking at him just gush to me about Will Anderson and gave him the key to the building and the leadership. And like, it's the same stuff coming out of Alabama, with Booker. And I see the athletic limitations, but they need culture change in that offensive line very clearly. Everyone who was involved with that offensive line is no longer inside the Houston Texans building. It feels like from a year ago. So I think Booker would be a real possibility there, but I'll go with Banks because I do think eventually he's a left tackle, and worst case he's a guard this year.
The Los Angeles Rams, who's picked 26, have their choice of 2 Joshes. I want to hear your thoughts on comparing these 2 players. Connerly, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, and Simmons out of Ohio State.
Simmons is a more talented player. There's no question about it. And I think Simmons, if you can get the best out of him, he's the best offensive tackle in this class, talent-wise. Connerly, I think he fits their scheme. I think, I would go with Connerly here over
really
Simmons. Slightly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I worry about Simmons. I don't want to.
I like Connerly a lot. I liked I really fell in love with him watching Oregon. Okay. Whoo! I feel like the league is going to be infuriated that. Well, let me get my 2 choices here. That this man has fallen to the damn Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Booker.
It always happens, right?
And then Ezraku is my other choice.
I would take Booker. This is a team that wants to run the football.
What a fit.
Yeah, it's a really good fit. And you go back to Ozzie, this organization is they are so patient. They wait, and there's always someone there. It feels like they're always picking in the 20s. and there's always someone that falls to them. And I think that this would be another example. And knowing the Ravens, like they might be even move back 3 or 4 spots and still get a guy like Booker and get an additional pick. So, yeah, I think Booker makes a lot of sense there.
Lions, unsurprisingly, are going to be given the choice between 2 edges, one of whom I have not mentioned. I've seen
Okay.
him mocked all over the place. You could probably guess who I'm going to talk about. That's James Pierce Jr. Donovan Ezeraku remains on the board as a choice for them. Between these 2 edges, who would you take?
This is a tricky one, right? Because it's all about culture and the grind and Dan Campbell, and we want to bring in guys that fit our culture, right? But sometimes you get enough of those guys and you have such a strong culture that you can bring in a couple guys that will fall in line. And that's what I would do here. If I was comfortable enough with James Pierce as an organization, because there's frustration and across the league, because Pierce with the externals and kind of all of that. But at the end of the day, I truly believe the second best pass rushing edge rusher in this class is James Pierce. It's speed, it's bend, it's dip, he creates a panic attack for every offensive tackle and just about every snap. And they need that. And I would roll the dice here a little bit with the culture I've built to bring him along.
Ezeraku remains on the board for the Washington Commanders. This is the first time I'm going to bring up Nick Emanwari, the incredibly athletic, but some might argue slightly raw safety out of South Carolina. What would you do if you're Adam Peters?
I know they would absolutely consider safety. Jeremy Chin gone, and yes, the talent is there. I think edge, they probably need edge a little bit more. And Ezeraku, you know what you're getting. I think this is the range that Ezeraku is going to come off the board. I've seen things play, where it's gotten kind of carried away. I think it's late first.
We're 29. Yeah.
Yeah, he's 29. This is a good spot for the long arm, 34-inch arms, the 3-cone that matches the tape and the body control and the instincts that he has. Like, that's the difference between him and an unbelievably gifted Stewart, Shemar Stewart. So, yeah, I would go Ezeraku here.
Okay. All right. The Buffalo Bills. I actually really like how this has shaken out for them, because I think defensively, some very interesting choices, including a couple players that we have already talked about. I kind of wanted to go corner, but Hairston's gone. Well, you know what? Let me throw up another. No, I'll do Grant back here.
You have the heavy lifting in this project, by the way.
Keeping track of it is where I'm most worried about forgetting.
And on the fly and creating 2 options. This is easy for me. I like this.
You get to be the GM who comes in at the end and
takes all the credit, does the press conferences.
I'm the guy
takes the pictures,
like on the phone. On the
right.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 defensive linemen here. Both of them will be talked about. Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, back on the board. You're the Buffalo Bills. Very different players who bring very different things to a defensive line.
Very much so. I'm just taking the better player. I'm going with Derek Harmon. Okay. And now I've got more pass rush. Again, it goes back to when you have the quarterback and you're going to score points, which Buffalo has. You need closers. And honestly, if you can get a closer in the interior, that's as good, if not better, than off the edge. And so you look at like what Aaron Donald was late in games. I'm not saying, please don't clip this out. I'm saying I'm saying that when you have the ability to rush the quarterback from inside, I just think Derek Harmon, that's the value. And I think he would be a great addition to that defense.
I'm cheesing because I love the choice I'm about to make you make for the Kansas City Chiefs. So one of them is probably obvious. Josh Simmons is back, offensive tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a player who dropped. I think he will probably go before here, but I refuse to give him to Denver. So he is available to the Kansas City Chiefs. I haven't heard people talking about this as a need for the Chiefs. What if Omarion Hampton is there?
Give me Hampton.
I would love this so much.
Give me Hampton. What is he like?
How fun would that
97th
be?
percentile missed tackles forced as a receiver in this class. Explosiveness with the creases that they're able to create with Mahomes, like his downhill burst and acceleration. That would be a very surprising pick, catch everyone off guard.
Right.
But then we'd do like a wrap-up show, right, on Sunday, and you're like, of course the Chiefs get Omarion Hampton. I think that, honestly, you look at it, like, I think they could use that. I like that.
Before we do the final pick, which is, of course, Philadelphia Eagles, do you view there being enough of a drop-off? Is Hampton your RB2?
Yes.
Okay. Do you view there being enough of a drop-off between Hampton and the next tier of backs, because we know this is an incredibly deep and fun running back class, to justify a first-round pick on him?
I do, and this is the reason why. Because I'm not picking again to the end of the second round, and that means Travion Henderson's gone. And I think that there's a smaller gap between Hampton and Henderson than maybe people realize in NFL personnel people's minds. If utilized properly, I think Henderson in that system would be awesome too. So I just, and there's probably going to be, Quinshon Judkins could be gone. Caleb Johnson could be gone. I'm not getting the difference. If I'm going to pull the trigger and make an unexpected pick like that, it better be on someone who I know is going to come in and is going to just light a fire for our offense. And I think Hampton could do that.
Yeah, I would buy all the fantasy stock of Omarion Hampton if that happened. Okay.
And I would do the same for Henderson. If Hampton went 20 to Denver and they pulled the trigger on Henderson, I hadn't thought about this, Mina. I kind of that's something to keep an eye on.
No one's talking about running backs really for this year. I'm like, anyways, yeah, it's a great point about them picking at the end, because I think that when there's going to be a second run on them, right? And then it's like, oh, do you want to miss that?
Right.
Okay. Fun choice. Final pick of the draft. Philadelphia Eagles, players I have not mentioned for them. Greg Zabel, interior offensive lineman, quietly something that they need to bolster.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Morrison here. Philadelphia Eagles. Fascinating player to me. One who I absolutely loved before the injury. If you're the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe you feel like, okay, cool, we don't need him to play right away, but we think if you're them and you believe this, we think he's unbelievably talented. We want to get him in the building.
I love Morrison. I can't unsee the 2023 tape, which is, and I mean that in a positive way. I'm going with Zabel though. I think that position flexibility, the toughness he brings, they need their offensive line to be strong if this thing's going to work the way that they've designed it. They're great on the defense. They're great on defense, period. But we can't have a problem with Hurts. We got to be able to run the football. I think Zabel would be a great fit there.
All right, that's it. Is there anyone that so some of the fallers? Burden didn't get picked in the first round.
Yep.
So that would be one that comes to mind.
Eamon Warry didn't, right?
Eamon Warry didn't. We offered him as a choice, but he did not. I don't know. I'm not really seeing that many shockers.
Eamon Warry's my only player in the top 32 that we didn't draft.
Okay.
I do think with the Eagles, keep an eye on that Dallas Goedert situation. I could see Mason Taylor.
Ooh, he's my tight end 3. We talked about him this week. Yeah.
I think Mason Taylor could be interesting there.
Not a dissimilar skill set. Yeah.
But nobody else. That's it. Eamon Warry is the only player in my top 32 that didn't come off the board. Is that pretty good? You did your job well, Mina. This is fun. I like this.
Isn't it? It's a really good way to get through a lot of teams. I did promise a trade at the end for Tyler Shook, but I chickened out of it because I just can't see it happening. But
he'll be there in 2 picks at 34.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody could take him. I'm a fan of his as well. Also a fan of yours, Todd McShay. Thank you so much for coming on, guys. Truly, go check out Todd's podcast and also the newsletter if you're a draft freak. And if you made it this far in this podcast, you're obviously a draft freak. Go check that out. He's in the YouTube minds like myself, so also you can go watch on YouTube. And we share the same producer, so it's good. All right.
Absolutely.
Todd, thank you so much for coming on. This was a ton of fun.
Absolutely. Great to be with you, Mina. I'll talk to you soon.